Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 84th video of my video journal series. Today's date is Sunday, the 3rd of May, 2026. How's everyone been? I've been pretty good, thank you. And something I want to share with you today is passports. Now, I obviously have my adult Australian passport. I only got one when I was 18. I used that to go to Japan for the first time overseas. But I guess today's video will be just focusing upon the Australian passport experience, because I have a bone to pick with the Australian government, more specifically on how they deliver passports. Now, obviously, I love my passport. I still got that stamp from when I went to Japan, when I had to go through customs. They stamp your passport and it's got like a really nice stamp on it. And obviously, I like keep it in my mini cover, which I bought off Amazon. But one thing irritated me when I received that passport in the mail. And if you don't know, the Australian passport costs around, for an adult, it's 400 AUD. In comparison, I'm pretty sure the US passport is around 200 AUD. Um, and the Singaporean one, I don't know. It's most probably cheaper than the Australian one, despite the Singaporean one being the more powerful one. The Australian one is pretty powerful, but it's not the most powerful in the world, but it is one of the most expensive in the world. I'm pretty sure it is the most expensive passport. But you expect for $400 you'll be receiving, top of the line quality materials and security features, and they definitely added a lot of security features. But when I received my one in the mail around 2 years ago, I noticed that they just send it in like a regular envelope. How odd. So I open it up, and they don't even give you like a plastic cover or anything like that anymore. They just give you the passport, and I notice it's already bent. I'm like, oh, maybe the postman tried shoving in like the mailbox. But I read about this online. The material that they use for the cover of those Australian passports actually bends in the heat. So they literally ship out faulty passports. The Australian government, mind you, for $400, send you a faulty passport because they can't, I guess, put in or implement, a better sort of material to use for the cover, or they can't even give you like a, couple of cents for a plastic sleeve, and you literally receive your $400 passport damaged already. And you shouldn't be paying for something that's already broken unless it was advertised as already broken. When you're paying for something that is advertised as brand new, you expect it to be brand new. That's like if you get like a birth certificate from the Australian government and they're like, oh yeah, it's got just a mini tear in the corner. I hope you don't mind about it. Well, that is an important government document. It's like when you go overseas with your passport. Even the smallest amount of damage, it might have some security concerns, it might have issues trying to like scan it, you know. You think for such an important document, it should be in tip-top shape, but no, the Australian government just sends it out faulty, and that just gets me on my nerves. Because when I picked it up, I noticed, hey, there's a little like dent in the corner, and like obviously the cover's like warped, it's like bent. So yeah, that is your Australian passport experience. You receive your passport faulty. Um, you receive your passport and the cover is already bent. You know, and obviously you can always put it in the case and revert back to its original position. But like you shouldn't have to. And they don't even give you like a case or a plastic sleeve. Literally, a plastic sleeve will cost a few cents, but no, the Australian government must save money for those tax surpluses, if you know what I mean. Um, we all have to account for in the budget. But, anyway, that's just my pettiness about receiving something that is slightly damaged. It's like when I bought that Jackass Blu-ray and had like a mini chip in the corner. Um, you know, and obviously I'm an expert when it comes to bragging about things as minor as that. But other people like me have had similar experiences where they receive like their passports through the mail and it's like already damaged. Um, and it just gets sent like a regular envelope, no padding, nothing like that. So yeah, Anthony Albanese, if you're watching this, then get onto it. This is of national importance. We must redesign our passports with a more durable material, or just chuck in a plastic sleeve, extra padding, and calling it a day. It wouldn't be that hard. But anyway, I digress. Obviously, yeah. So once you receive your passport, which you pay $400 for 10 years as an adult, and it's already somewhat damaged, you're ready to go travel overseas. And obviously, with your Australian passport, you can go to a lot of countries. I've been to Japan, New Zealand, um, and the thing about New Zealand is I don't because when I went through customs, I just did mine on the New Zealand travel declaration app, so I didn't actually get a stamp in my passport, and it made me think, wow, I wish I would have just gone through like the in-person customs instead of one of those like digital gates and just got like a mini stamp inside of my passport cover. But apparently, a lot of countries are not doing that now. That experience when you arrive in a foreign country and you get someone to stamp the inside of your passport. I only had that happen in Japan, but they're trying to go more digital now, and to me, that kind of ruins the experience. Like a passport's supposed to be a memory. Like sort of like you know a time capsule of all like the places that you've been to, so you can flick through and say, "Oh, I went to Japan this year, New Zealand this year, America this year." Um, Going all digital, it just lacks that, I guess, you know, memory. And just that one little stamp like gives you like a memory of the country. Whenever I go through my Australian passport, whenever I see that Japan stamp, my first time going overseas, it brings back memories. You know, and it's just like a small little thing. But I wish more countries would actually um, retain that sort of physical stamp system instead of going all digital. But the good thing about being an Australian tourist going to New Zealand is that you can get through customs very quickly if you don't have much on you. And New Zealand is a lovely country. So, yeah, and I guess flights are relatively cheap. They're like 400 or 500 AUD. Um, was it 400 or 500 AUD return around that price? I think it'll be cheaper to fly from Sydney to Auckland than Sydney to Perth, which is just insane to think about. Um, I even heard that flying from Sydney to Perth is the same price roughly than Perth to London, which is really weird to think about that. You know, maybe it's like $100 extra, but it's like pretty much nearly the exact same. I think I saw like a figure online. Uh, don't know how reputable it was, but yeah, just I guess Perth is far away from the rest of Australia, so I wouldn't be surprised if airfares were quite expensive. But yeah, so with your Australian passport, a lot of Australians actually have a passport. I'm pretty sure like 80 or 90% of Aussies have a passport. Um, Compared to like only a very small amount of Americans. I believe it's like less than 30% of Americans have a passport. I believe it was like 10 or 20. Um, you know, Obviously my numbers are off, but I remember seeing that like statistic for the first time. I'm like, man, like I can't believe that number isn't higher. It's definitely below 50% or 30% of Americans. Um, and I'm like, man, there's like the majority of the United States population don't have passports, which I just yet again, it's just really weird to think about that, especially when you compare that to other countries, such as I guess UK, Germany, Australia, but also it's because of the US passport laws. I believe if you're going on a cruise ship that starts in the US, goes to like the Bahamas and to Mexico, and then back to the US. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you'll need a passport. I think you only needed a passport when you disembark in like Mexico. And I'm pretty sure like the US has like some weird like passport laws around that. So which most probably explains why most Americans don't have passports. And before 2001, uh all Americans needed to go into Canada was just like proof of ID, but obviously now they need a passport. So that number would have been lower, maybe even 25 years ago. If the amount of Americans who owned a passport would have been like insanely low. Um, so yeah, like obviously I'm not an expert in U.S. passport. Um, I guess technicalities, but um, yeah, it did kind of shock me when I read about that statistic. It made me wonder, why do the vast majority of Australians have a passport, even though growing up I didn't have one. And I guess it's the fact that we're, I guess, so isolated as a country. So obviously a lot of people, um, we do have like a lot, like a very large immigrant population. 30% of people currently right now in Australia weren't actually born in the country; they were born overseas, which is just a testament to how multicultural society is. But obviously, people might want to go back to their home countries for like Christmas time or visiting relatives and friends. So I can understand why. Um, in that aspects, we have a high, I guess, passport ownership rate because obviously people need a passport to come into Australia, which is already 30% of our population. Then you've got people wanting to travel overseas to New Zealand, um, going overseas for like business and all that. So yeah, and the fact that I've heard people say, "Oh, there's nothing to do in Australia." Well, I think that's wrong. I think we have a lot of lovely things here in Australia. Not to say you can't travel overseas and enjoy other cultures, but whenever I hear that statement, "Oh, Australia is nothing, man," it's just I think you're not looking hard enough. I think we have some of the best beaches, natural environment in the world. Um, and as someone who's been overseas, like obviously I like going overseas, but you know, I do get a little bit homesick. And I feel like there's a lot of things you can do in Australia, like just travel domestically without a passport. Um, and you know, yet again, I was only 18 years old before I got my passport, but there's a lot you can do. Um, in terms of domestic travel. In fact, I like to travel around Australia a lot more, I guess, domestically. Go to every state and territory, go to every major city, or maybe even the outback. I wouldn't mind um, traveling domestically, but it can be quite expensive. Um, and I guess um, yet again, passport is pretty much like your key um, to going around the world. But I feel like at least your Australian passport really needs some you know quality control, because if you're intending on, I guess, keeping it even just as like a memory or token or whatever, even after the expiry date, just keeping it in your room. Um, they have to be durable. They have to not bend in the heat, especially when you're going overseas in like tropical countries and you carry your passport on you. What's stopping your passport from getting damaged? Um, you know, Even in its case or whatever. Uh, that's when I guess you know considerations must be made. And um, yeah, I guess my biggest fear is like if I travel overseas and lose my passport. I actually have a very funny story to tell, or not really funny, but it was like a story which had a good ending. I had a mate who went to Japan, but he did a he did a stopover flight in China. I'm pretty sure it was in Shanghai or Beijing or Guangzhou, one of those Chinese cities. He had a stopover flight, and he went to like rest in the airport terminal, and then he woke up, and then he realized, oh, my flight's is gonna leave soon. Where's my passport? He was um, in a foreign country for I think the first time, and he was in a country where obviously he couldn't speak the language. Stuck in a big airport, and he realized, oh, I don't have my passport on me. So yeah, he lost his passport, but he went to the information desk, basically tried to like retrace his steps, and he went back to like an information desk, and it turns out that he left his passport around the information desk when he was trying to like log into the airport Wi-Fi, and some Puritan saint handed that in, into the information desk instead of like, I don't know, stealing it or neglecting it or just like, someone else's issue. Now they returned it back to the information desk, and it was because of that one person's very, very kind actions that he was able to get on the plane and continue the rest of his journey. But yeah, when he told me that story, I was like, man, he was so lucky, um, just to have like recovered that passport. Because my biggest fear when I go overseas is that I'll lose my passport. I think that's everyone's biggest fear, you know. You can always, I guess, go to your local embassy and all that. Um, if anything happens, maybe that's like the first thing you should do. But yeah, certainly not going to be a fun time, and that's why like I never, I guess, never be too confident on where my passport is at all times. If I say where my passport is, I got to check where it is. I'm not going to be like, oh, I think it's here or here, or I'm going to leave it in the hotel room. No, bring it on you at all times. And I don't know, bring like a um, fanny pack or some sort of like thing where you can keep it on you instead of like in your backpack, you know. Um, Not like in your pockets or anything like that. Get one of those like uh, bum bags or whatever, and yeah, just keep it in like a secure place at all times. Because yeah, your passport's going to be the most valuable thing when you travel overseas. Trust me. And yeah, I guess to sort of like end this video off, yeah, passports. In my eyes, I like to view them as like a memory book of sorts of all my travels and places I've been to. Obviously, it's a very good form of ID, not for just traveling overseas, not just that, but like if you want to go to pubs or anything like that, you can just show them your passport. Especially when you're overseas and you want to like go to a pub, you just show them your passport. Um, and obviously, I have some criticisms of the Australian government and how they deliver our passports in this country and the price, but that's just Australia for you, Um, and obviously, I had a mate I told the story of one of my mates who lost his passport in an airport in China and just narrowly was able to get on his connecting flight. And yeah, I guess, um, take care of your passport, obviously, and I highly recommend getting one of those plastic sleeves or leather cases or whatever, like something like that, for your passport. Just keep it in good condition. Um, and, I feel like if you don't have a passport, you're not really, I guess, missing out on much. You pretty much use it just to travel overseas. And I do encourage, if you get the opportunity to travel overseas, to definitely do it. But to me, there's no place like home, Whenever I go overseas, towards the end, I just get a little bit homesick. I'm like, all right, I just want to go to Australia now, because even when I travel domestically, right, to another city, I always miss Sydney, because despite its, I guess, flaws and everything like that, I just so used to I guess the weather, the vibes and everything like that. Um, Melbourne weather, it is like quite cloudy, so I couldn't really handle it. But yeah, I guess you know um, there's no place like home. And yeah, I like to hear your experiences of, I guess, traveling overseas or getting a passport or anything like that. Because one thing I forgot to mention is that the passport office, they always say, it could take like 6 months for us to receive your application and send out your passport. But when I sent mine application in to get my passport, I got it back within like a few weeks. But I guess it depends what time of year you do it. It can either take like a couple of weeks or it can take a couple of months before you get your new passport. And also, another thing I forgot to mention, passport pictures. Um, that feeling when you take or go to like your local post office to take your passport picture. You're like, oh my god, I just pray that this passport picture gets accepted. You put it on your application, you send it, then they reject it, saying, actually, there's a slight little error with the passport picture. We can't accept it. That's never happened to me, fortunately, but, you know, I've had heard experiences of that happening, and that must, like, really suck, you know, but it's always that, like, anxiety, you know, like, oh my god, hopefully the application went through, hopefully everything went a-okay. And if you let your passport expire in Australia, then trying to, like, you know, um, restart the application for a new passport is going to be very, very hard or very, very burdensome. Um, Renewing your passport is easy, but filling out a form to get a passport for the first time or after your passport's expired and you didn't renew it, you got to go through that whole process again of saying, what's your name, what's your this. We need a referencee. We need like, what do they call a referencee? Uh, Reference or something like that, where you have to get like a person that you've known for at least like a couple of years or a year or whatever, and they give down their details and everything like that. I remember doing that for the first time, and that was just absolutely just, you know, it was very tedious, and that just goes with most government applications. But anyway, I've been talking for too much, and before I leave, I know I've been saying before, but like before I leave, I guess I'll give you my little quote of wisdom for today, and that is to never stop exploring the world or just the environment around you. I know these quotes I'm saying aren't exactly original, but yeah, I guess, you know, obviously, you know, Earth is such a big, big planet with many, many countries and continents. It'll be, I guess, unrealistic to venture every single square inch of space there is on Earth. You know, let alone a single country. Maybe if it's like, you know, Liechtenstein, maybe you could do it. But, you know, for a country like Australia, you'll never be able to see every little square inch of Australia. But, you know, travel as much as you can. If you have the opportunity to travel, then 100% do it. Never stop, I guess, even exploring the environment around you. If you live in a city, then, you know, go for a walk sometimes. Plug in some headphones, listen to some music, and, you know, explore. Learn the things around you. You can learn a lot about a place by just simply um, being there and getting to talk to the locals and, you know, read about its history and just live in that place and look at its architecture, look at its um, demographic, look at its, you know, culture. You know, it will be my, I guess, dream in life just to travel around the world like everyone, you know. And traveling can be a quite expensive hobby, time consuming. You only get to do it like for a few weeks in a year, but I guess that's what makes it more valuable than any other hobby of mine. Um, and you know, I've already stated I like traveling overseas, and I've definitely found my passion in even just traveling domestically, and really even just going out for walks near where I live. You know, I feel like I can get like that little sense of adventure. But anyway, yeah, pretty much. Don't stop traveling. You know, spend more time looking around, um, looking at the environment around you. You know, spend some more time looking at the environment around you, being immersed in that environment, and travel as much as you can and get to know more about the earth or about the city or about the country, um, you know, when you're there. And that's all I can really say. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I guess I'll see you all later. Bye. See ya. Take care. See you all next time.